There's some Revelator songs that I'm like, man, we got to bring those back. But we've done so many songs and albums. There's like so much to choose from that I guess we don't think about it all the time.
You need to get you a really good slide player in Nashville, and you guys need to cover a Derek Trucks song.
You know, he told me Susan wrote the song, which he was proud of. He said that with great pride, you know, the way you say nice things about your family.
From the first note with Tedeschi Trucks, they just blow you away.
Yes, we will. I wouldn't argue with anyone that says that could be my favorite song on I Am the Moon.
He signs my ticket, and I look over at Susan. I say, Susan, would you sign it too? And she goes, oh, heck yeah.
Kevin calls me and was like, hey, man, what are you doing? I was like, nothing. He was like, Derek wants to record some tuba stuff. I said, when do you want to do it? And he was like, let's do it Wednesday.
It was Midnight Harlem. And it caught our attention, man. And we started diving deep, and we're like, okay, we got to see these guys.
What's up? Welcome to the unofficial Tedeschi Trucks podcast. This is episode number 180, and I'm Adam Choate. To follow the show, it's at Tedeschi Trucks Podcast on Instagram and on YouTube. Just search Tedeschi. Sorry about that. Just search Tedeschi Trucks Podcast. If you're watching, you're already there, so please be sure to subscribe. I'll put out an audio version of this episode as well later tonight, tomorrow, this weekend for sure, so please subscribe on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on. Patreon.com/TTB podcast if you would like to support. That is definitely appreciated. Thanks, Kathleen, Stacy, Troy, Daniel, Mariah, and Marion. What do we got? 2 more shows left for TTB this year. This weekend on nugs.net. The show's in Atlanta, but before then, let's talk about the last 2 in Charlotte, North Carolina at the Ovens Auditorium, not Owens Auditorium, like I just realized moments ago. But let's bring on newcomer to the show, Joe Weyl. What's up?
Hey, Adam. How you doing?
Oh, good. What's cooking? How are you doing?
Recovering. 4 nights at Tedeschi Trucks over 7 days made for a great week.
Yeah, I'm definitely jealous of that, and I'm glad to have you on and appreciate your time so I can live vicariously through you. Before we get into the shows, why don't you tell me a little bit about your TTB background or musical journey, origin stories? Because I think you've seen TTB a handful of times, many times, I suppose. So we'll get into all that and your music journey.
Yeah, so it was actually kind of interesting how I got started with TTB. I did not listen to Susan or Derek's early music. I was at the Allman Brothers shows at the Beacon in 2014, the last set of shows, with a friend of mine who you've had on this podcast previously, Alex Marsh. Alex and I one day were hanging out playing poker at his house, and we were talking about dream shows, destination places to go see somebody play. And we said the Beacon for Allman Brothers. And it was and we ended up getting tickets to the last run. And while we were getting ready to go to those shows, Alex was just like, have you ever listened to Derek's other music? And I hadn't listened to Susan either. I knew who she was. Obviously knew who Derek was, but I just hadn't really gotten into him. And that was in 2014. And then I started listening to her music. And as soon as I got into it, I was hooked. I started going deep into the catalog, all the different iterations of the band. And that all ended up being preparation for the first time I saw them, which was at the 27th Christmas Jam in Asheville when they played with Warren Haynes there. And as soon as I saw them live, there was no way I was not going to do what I had to see this band every time I could. I was just all in.
What year was that Warren Christmas show?
That was 2015.
Okay, so around a little less than a year, but it could be as much as a year from when you started to listen to TTB, from when you actually saw them.
Yeah.
And that Warren show, that was just Susan and Derek, or was that Tedeschi Trucks?
No, that was all Tedeschi Trucks.
Okay.
It was the full band. It was the full lineup of Christmas Jam for Warren Haynes. So they were just one of the 8 or 9 bands that played that day as part of Christmas Jam. But
is there any? I was going to ask, is there anything specific that jumps out at you that you remember about the show, or just it could just, sometimes we don't remember specific things. It's just I remember it being awesome and how it made me felt, and that I knew I had to see this again. But maybe a song or a moment or something about that night jumps out at you.
What really jumped out at me was the musicianship of all of the players and how the band showcased that. That to me really seemed to draw me in a little bit more. I can watch Derek play all day long and not move and just sit there and watch. But when I looked at the overall band and how they all interacted together and the way that they played, I just was like, this reminded me of something bigger than just the individual musicians. It reminded me of something that I wanted to see as much as I could, to see where they took it, because the concept of a 12-piece band, instead of a 4, 5, 6 rock band, the fact that they're doing all the different styles of music that they did right from the get-go got me into them, and I was ready to check it out.
Yeah, there's nothing like this band. There's nothing like this band out there. Do you play guitar or any instruments or sing or do any of that?
I am musically not very inclined at all. I tried when I was younger. I have a piano and I cannot play. I'm actually, because of the hurricanes in Asheville, I'm sure like a lot of schools and other facilities lost some of their equipment. I'm actually looking to try to figure out like where I can donate my piano because I don't use it. I'd rather give it to an organization like Mr. Holland's Opus or something like that could give it to a school in Western North Carolina and maybe help some kids learn how to play. But, it was my mother's piano and it would be something that would be fantastic to do. So I don't play because of that, but I love it. I just never had the discipline. And I think that that's really important to understand when you look at these musicians is how much discipline it takes them to get to where they are. We are in awe of them when we go see them live. But, when they were 13, 14 years old and in their parents' house and, barely making a proper sound with what they were doing, I'm sure that their parents are like, oh, this is going to drive me nuts,
It's interesting to hear you and others describe like your fandom for TTB before we get too deep into conversation, because I could tell obviously if someone's a musician we're going to dive into music theory and maybe some technical things about guitar, but just when I'm having broad conversations with fans about how much we love TTB, I can't tell if someone's been listening to the band for 10 years, 5 years, they just discover them, they're a guitar player themselves, they're just a fan, they just like to dance at shows. Everyone just has so much passion for this band and is knowledgeable, like just some fans obviously know gear, know tech, and know music theory, but everyone is so knowledgeable about this band. Like, we're all very educated music fans. It's like I don't know, I can't think of another, obviously some jazz and some other genres, lend itself to like more perhaps intellectual music conversations, so to speak, but just from a pure passion standpoint, like that's something that we all share no matter what our background is. Warren sat in on that Keep On Growing night in Asheville. David Flam says here.
Yeah, he did. That's right. And that thank you, David. And of course, David would remember that because I know David's been all over the fan pages and on your podcast a few times. But I think the thing for me is that I grew up with a lot of older siblings, and I learned a lot about music when I was young. My mom played, which is why I have the piano, but I didn't really sit down and do that. But I learned to appreciate music in a certain way from growing up with all these different bands and being exposed to all the different music. And I think one of the things for me when it comes to this band is how they connect back to history and different blues and different music genres with what they do. That's one of the things that drives me to really enjoy the shows differently, because I know that when they pick a song to cover or they decide to do something different with a song that they have from the influences they have, I know it's going back to their love of that earlier music, their history, whether it's Derek looking at Albert King or B.B. King or Susan's relationship with B.B. King or somebody else like that and how it's influenced them. Like, I go back and listen to that music now with a different appreciation because of their love for that music. I'm learning more about different music because of what Tedeschi Trucks pulls out and their covers and what they're deciding to do in some of those other songs. Because to me, it shows like that musicianship and that respect for those other musicians. And I think that that's fantastic. I think bands, when they have that appreciation, it changes how they approach the show. Like I like everybody else, have gone to shows, had a few too many beers, maybe been loud, maybe talk too much, maybe do something else that annoys other fans or anything like that. I'm sure I've been guilty of that a few times. But I also think that the other fans who are sitting there and just quietly listening and appreciating the music and taking it inside of them have that completely different, calm perspective to what they're looking at, and they're more aware. I mean, I heard a long time ago, I heard a quote where it talks about, like, you know, trying to be more self-aware in your life and how it affects you. Live music is, talk about having to live in the moment, be aware. When you're in that moment, you're watching these musicians, you're never going to see that exact note played that exact same way. That you might see something similar. So like just in the 4 shows that I just saw, I saw some repeat songs, but they're different. How they did it on Friday night might be different than what they did, you know, last night. And I think I think that's, talk about living in that moment and being able to see the musicians live doing what they're doing, and that it's just, to me, that's what makes live music so fantastic.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's part of why I'm pretty excited this weekend for the nugs.net streams for these Atlanta shows. Because, I mean, I've kind of talked about, I've been to, you know, a handful of course, live TTB shows, but I haven't watched too many live performances. I mean, the Red Rocks and the occasional Nugs thing, but to see like a live performance just makes it more special. There's certain, you know, you don't know what's going to happen. The improvised is totally, you know, fresh. You don't know where it's going to go. That you're on this exciting, this journey with them, seeing live shows but on a stream, it's even different than seeing it live in person. I mean, obviously in person is the ideal and the best, especially close up. But with these streams, you really do get an intimate look, you know, with the camera work and the direction and the production. You're getting like a really cool, unique perspective on the band, like that you don't always get from, you know, I appreciate all the fan videos and watching all the YouTube videos from years past and months past. But seeing a live TTB show, even on a live stream on video, is super cool and just like a unique experience to itself that I'm looking forward to this weekend, certainly.
Yeah, and I think the one thing about it, those professional live streams, is that you get that a little bit more intimate look into how the band's interacting as they're playing. And you can get that obviously at the shows too, but like these 2 shows at Ovens, you know, it's a little bit smaller arena. It's like, you know, 2,500 people inside of it. And, you know, the size of it and so you were still kind of intimate with the band if you were in, you know, a certain number of rows, you know, back. But even in the back, you still got that feeling, like the energy was still there and you could sense some of that stuff. With the streams, you obviously get that first, you know, that camera moving in and seeing some of the things that are going on and the facial expressions of the band as they're interacting with each other. You know, that's also something that I like to like when I get the opportunity to be close and have that you know, whether it's right on the rail or not, and seeing them that way, that's fun. I mean, like what happened on November 8th, you know, in Raleigh, I was close enough that when they were going off, you know, for the second set on Friday night, I yelled to Susan, "Happy birthday." And everybody around me was like, "Wait, it's Susan's birthday?" And I was like, "Well, tomorrow." And so when they came back out for the encore, I got people around me start singing "Happy Birthday." And that's when Gabe and Derek started that. And then they started singing said "Happy Birthday" to Susan. We got everybody singing it. And I just thought it was funny because I was just being myself, being a little bit boisterous and loud, having a good time because I was in the 3rd row. I was right in front of Gabe and Derek the whole night, and I just was enjoying that moment. And I was like, all right, let's see what happens. And that's what happened out of it. And that is, again, that live feeling, what's happening right there, being in that moment.
Yeah, you did that. That was you.
Yeah,
essentially leading one thing leading to the next. It reminds me of I don't know if you ever seen the Jeff Goldblum sketch on Saturday Night Live years ago. He started this wave, and then it went throughout the stadium, and he kept telling everyone around him, "That's my wave. I started that." Trying to get credit for it. I think of that. But yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it was
you're in control of the set list
now. Moment, having fun with it, and everybody around me helped me too, because as soon as they started singing, that just prompted them to do that. So yeah, it was great. It was great. It was a lot of fun because obviously you could tell that they were enjoying their night. I mean that Friday night set. I don't usually take out my phone. But on the fan page, I did post a video that I took on Friday night with Alicia with Just Ain't Fair, and I normally don't do that, but in that moment, I felt like when Alicia was walking up, I was like, this is going to be something I want. This is something I'm going to, and I want to share it with others. So I took that video, but normally, I actually was at Red Rocks last year, seeing them when I was sitting there, and I was like, what am I doing in Red Rocks looking through my phone watching Tedeschi Trucks when they're right in front of me? So I put my phone in my pocket, and after that, I hardly ever, like maybe in between songs, I'll take out my phone and take a picture of the band. But I try not to do that now because I try to just live in that and just be in that whole idea of checking out the music and not getting distracted by my phone with it.
No, totally.
I think that actually helps. I understand that the fans that can't make it, how much they appreciate the videos and the mixlers and other things that come up. And I do too. I love it too. But at the same time, when I'm at the show and I see phones come up, I'm just like, I'm glad I keep my phone down right now. But every once in a while, I will sneak one in too because I'm guilty, just like everybody else. I'm like, I want this.
Yeah, my advice, I guess, on that front is like in terms of the phones, recording video, audio, whatever. Do it at the shows where you don't see a lot of people doing it. If you're at Red Rocks or the Beacon, we're gonna get a million videos. We're gonna get fan recordings. We're gonna get YouTubes. We're getting professional stream this weekend. I'm sure a fair amount of video and audio will come out from this weekend too. But when you're at the off the beaten path show and you don't see a lot of phones out and maybe not a lot of hardcore fans there, that's when you got to step up for us who weren't able to be there in person. For the content.
And there was because both places in Raleigh and in Charlotte weren't that big. There was only a couple of tapers there. Microphones that I saw, and I know Raleigh was recorded, and I think Charlotte was as well because I saw one of the microphones there. But I think some of these shows that are coming out. I mean, I understand there's always that question about like why. With the catalog that Tedeschi Trucks have, there's probably some legal reasons and other reasons why some of this isn't available on Nugs from soundboards, or some other format on soundboards. But I think the tapers that are helping us out with taping are doing a good job of feeding the shows. And I know I listen to a lot of them. So I appreciate the tapers doing what they do to get it out.
Oh, for sure. Mr. 12 just posted looks like 11:12 at Ovens Auditorium. I haven't tried to play it yet, but if it's not up and working, it's loading right now.
Yeah.
Why don't we get into these shows, and I'll pull up some pictures and things like that, the set lists and
absolutely.
Do I got the right arena here, the right theater?
Let's see. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's it.
Just a random picture I got.
Yep, that is it.
Colorful. I like that.
Yeah, the way that the slope was on that, it was very easy to get around and be able to, if you wanted to sit, you could still see the band. If you wanted to stand, you could see. It was easy enough for folks to be able to enjoy the show because the sound was perfect. One thing I will say about these 4 shows is the sound was absolutely perfect. Outside of Tuesday night, there were some issues with Susan's monitor, and I know, there was some problems for the first I think for Wawa and Anyhow before, but I think they got it fixed around then. But outside of that, you could hear the sound so clearly in these shows. It was pitch perfect. And I listen to a lot of Tedeschi trucks, and I think these 4 shows are probably the clearest I've ever heard Brandon playing underneath all of everything else that you hear going on. I feel like his bass lines were just so crisp, so clear, and out there for everybody to kind of follow along. And it was really kind of nice to hear that in the music. I kind of like bass every once in a while.
Sure. I think multiple.
Less just passing, a bass player that everybody thinks of, but just to hear that kind of meander through the music perfectly, it was great. Yeah,
more and more people seem to be including myself, have commented on that in the past weeks and months, that Brandon seems to be, a little boosted in the mix perhaps, and I think fans have pushed for that, and I think some of us have even pushed him directly to push to be a little more pronounced in the mixed. Super cool. He lays it down too. Yeah. Definitely. All those terms.
I would say the set list itself, the interesting thing about Ovens was that the crowd side or the crowd age kind of median was a little bit skewed on the older side than Raleigh.
Yeah, I heard Raleigh was quite young.
Yeah, but so there was a lot of based on the way the flow of the show was going, the crowd was kind of sitting a lot during the show. Which was, fine. This is not a stand controversial question, situation. I'm just saying the way the flow was of the show. But when certain songs came on and certain things that Derek or Susan or Gabe would do, all of a sudden you would just see people jumping up and getting into it. And then a couple more people would jump up and then the band's tempo would be going along some of those rhythms. I think on Keep On Growing, I think that they had this crescendo going that was so amazing that people you could feel that energy lift everybody up as he was playing it. And that was really cool to see inside that show. I will say that I was really happy to catch Tangled Up in Blue. That's a Dylan song that I've always enjoyed. I used to love when Jerry Garcia Band used to cover that song because I always liked the way he played it. And I think they did, Gabe's vocals are very good on it. And I just love the way that sounds. I think the way they ended the set with Made Up Mind was really good too. Strong. It was a strong outing of that song.
You're talking about I can pull up the set list. I want to actually ask, did you see the poster or look at the poster at all?
Yeah, I did look at the poster.
It is kind of wild.
Yeah, I didn't look at it that close from the merch tent, but I looked at it from online, and I was like, okay, this is kind of interesting. All the little intricate things that they had on it. So that was for Tuesday night.
Derek's guitar. Yeah, I like this.
Yeah,
these are cool.
I'm getting to the point now where I don't have any space for posters, so I haven't really been buying any right now. But I know some people would say there's always room for more posters.
How many TTB shows have you been to?
Since 2015, I don't know. I'm probably up in close to 30, I think now.
Okay, not an insane amount. That's where I am a little more.
I've been to 12 in the last 2 years. Because I went to 6 last year and then I went to 6 this year.
Yeah, it's not always we go to the same amount of shows every year. It tends to increase exponentially, if possible, when possible.
Well, I did Red Rocks last year. And so that was a big Tedeschi Trucks budget buster trip. So it was a destination that I wanted to do. So it couldn't have gone any better, though. It was a great weekend. Yeah, that one's with Susan's guitar and the Harvest.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Went with more of the blue for the guitar versus the green, but I'm sure that was done on purpose. We still know it's Susan's guitar.
Yeah, it's
fall,
obvious
fall,
when you look at it.
harvest, seasonal.
Yep.
I'm sure there's a bunch of Charlotte references in here that I'm not getting.
I wouldn't get them right now
see.
either, Adam. I only
Yeah.
moved here a year ago, so this is I moved from Raleigh a year ago, so this is all like new to me. I'm still
Yeah, I didn't even ask where you are. Is that where you were born and raised in North Carolina?
No, I'm actually from New York.
We're in New York.
Albany.
Gotcha, upstate.
So yeah.
Is that considered upstate? Everyone from Long Island, New York City considers Westchester anything north of Westchester's upstate to us.
Yep, exactly.
But that's upstate.
Albany's upstate. But I grew up. My home, concert venue was SPAC. So it was not a tough place to grow up when you came to concerts, because you go to Saratoga and it's just a beautiful area, like destination place to go and check out bands play.
You seen TTB at SPAC?
Not yet. I tried to go this year, but it didn't work out timing wise.
Yeah, that's another. I mean, I'm just judging by conversations I've had with others, but that's a quality spot. People seem to be happy with. I mean, most people are generally happy with the venues, give or take, and it's usually extenuating circumstances that people are most annoyed by, whether it be prices of, vending stuff or parking or those kinds of things, standing versus sitting. It's not usually the venue itself, or definitely not the music. I'll pull up the set list here. Where are we at?
What I liked about the theaters that they picked for these two shows, Ovens, and then obviously in Raleigh with the other theater, is that it was the size of them. They're being like around 2,500 people. It was really intimate in the nature of how that felt, and I was surprised that the shows weren't sold out, even at that size of a venue. You go to some place like the Beacon, or you go up to Madison Square Garden, and we get a lot more. But I think they ended up getting close to sell out by showtime. But when we had looked earlier just to check out like what tickets were still available, and we're like, wow, they're not sold out. Most of them were like last minute Ticketmaster resale tickets. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough times for a lot of people, and I guess also midweek maybe that's something to do with it. That probably doesn't help, but yeah, no. Well, people missed an amazing show if anyone in the area had a chance to go and didn't go. Wawa, anyhow, it's so heavy. Gin House Blues keep on growing. I got it covered up. What was 6 here? I don't know what 6 was. I'll get it in a sec. La-di-da.
Yeah, La-di-da, Hold the Line.
Tangled Up in Blue. Made Up Mind to close at the set 2, Preaching Blues acoustic, and then Do I Look Worried, Statesboro, Soul Sweet Song, Come See About Me, Take Me As I Am, Passaquan drums, Passaquan finishing up, Just Won't Burn, I Wish I Knew to close out the set and got my mojo working. Mama DD Radio was streaming some of this, so I caught a big chunk of this. This is awesome that we got Come See About Me, and Hold That Line is definitely a moment.
Yeah. I thought the Soul Sweet Song was it kind of like set a mood in the room. Like a lot of people kind of identified right away. Boom, here's Soul Sweet Song, and everybody just kind of had that energy, thinking of Kofi, thinking of the song, and going through all of that. So it was kind of neat. I had my Kofi shirt on, and people were turning around and fist bumping me and stuff. And I'm just like, hey, I just, bought the shirt to try to help out with, I think I got it through one of the fundraisers or whatever that was going on. I didn't get to do a day of service because I didn't do Charlotte when I lived here, but, so I didn't get it that way. But yeah, I can't remember which. I saw something during the pandemic. I was going nuts on buying and supporting TTB any way I could.
Dude, so, I might have an extra shirt for you. We'll tell you can figure that. I
have a Kofi shirt right now.
Oh, okay.
I have one. Well, I was saying I bought like a Kofi shirt. I bought a bunch of stuff for TTB, like during all the streaming shows that they did during that time period. I made sure to donate to all those. Like during that time period, I was like, live music. these bands and these large crews, they're going to need all the help they can get. So I did whatever I could during that time because I was like, I want to make sure I see them when they come out of this. Didn't know that we're going to get, 4 albums out of it from Tedeschi Trucks as part of it. But glad we did because we got some beautiful music out of it.
That is for sure. Yeah, I mean, there's so many things jump out at me about this set list. But thinking about the Soul Suite song, it's almost like this band demands one's undivided attention. Certainly with everything they play, especially if they're playing something like Midnight in Harlem, a signature song or something like that. But almost with Soul Suite song or anything very Kofi centric, you kind of owe the band your undivided attention, I feel like. And I think that's part of the vibe in the room. Whereas the hardcore fans that know Kofi and the history, they're giving their undivided attention to the band, and then everyone else kind of follows suit and they know something special is happening. And I think the flute also is a very unique element that we're getting, and that's super cool. And we're getting it usually. I think we're getting a flute in set 1 and usually a flute in set 2. I don't know if we got that tonight, but when they, we've been getting a flute on Don't Think Twice.
Right.
When they play Don't Think Twice and Soul Suite song or Idle Wind. Obviously, there's a few of them now. Am I missing anyone, Chad? Am I missing any flute songs?
Yeah, no, I can't think of them all off the top of my head right now.
I think that might be it right now.
Yeah.
Maybe on the outro of I Want More sometimes, before the pre-Bex Bolero, pre-Soul Sacrifice, but after the main.
Yeah, now when they integrate it with that, they don't really do that part because of the way they're transitioning between them. But yeah, and I thought the Just Won't Burn I thought Susan was on fire during that. She just seemed to have the way she had some strength in her, and the way she was singing it and playing it. I really enjoyed that. I mean, again, like I said, I didn't know her earlier music until I started getting into them as a band and started going back. So that album being 25 years old or now it's 26. So it's that song has a lot to it. And Pasaquan's always one that can get people moving. That Derek does a good job of getting everybody going with how he plays that song, and the drums are always just fantastic during it. It reminds I'm a Deadhead too, so it reminds me of some of the earlier drums that I remember hearing in some of the Dead shows way back when, and even sometimes the way the Allman Brothers would do some drum intros. But the way Tyler and Isaac are playing together, it's really great. Like you can tell they're in sync, enjoying themselves in the way that they're playing. And I think they move that transition between Pasaquan along really well. Like it's fun. It's fun when they get going.
Yeah, for sure. We were talking about how the band educates us on artists and blues artists that have come before us, but I think they also expand my ear, just becoming more of an appreciator of just percussion and drums. And I've always loved, I love all kinds of music, but I think just the double drums and some of the talent that's come through this band, JJ and now Isaac with Falcon, I just have more of an appreciation for drums and drum duets and drum solos. It's an old sort of cliche, I'm gonna go to the bathroom during the drum solo or kind of whatever, that kind of thing. But I'm not really that way at all. I kind of really I love especially the conversation that they have between each other. It just makes me appreciate the instrument itself more.
What's fun to me is when they get going and Derek is watching them and you see Derek going with them. In the show, I love that part of it because I could tell that they've practiced what they're doing and they have a certain rhythm or not the musical rhythm, but knowing the cadence of what they're going to do and playing that and then getting into the next song because of the way they're deriving the set list before they do all this stuff. But it's still fun to watch Derek's reaction as they're going. And, sometimes Gabe's reaction as well if he's out there. And it makes me kind of appreciate the fact that they appreciate each other as musicians so much. because they're having that fun with the whole set list and being able to do that part of it, and just being out there and rocking themselves. Derek is one thing I've noticed over the last even some of the streams that I've seen and some of the shows that I've seen. It seems like Derek is having a little bit more fun with the band when he's playing. I don't know. Maybe I didn't notice it before, and now I'm noticing it. Maybe he always smiled a lot, when he was, when he's looking in between. But with being so close to those last couple of shows in Raleigh, maybe I just noticed it more. Maybe he's always that way, but it seems like he's having a lot of fun with everybody, and as his guitar leadership goes with what he's doing, it seems like the band is having a lot of fun with that too. And just also like when Susan, like I brought a friend on Tuesday night. That was the first time he ever saw them. And he was just looked at me and he was like, man, Susan is killer. And I was like, yeah, she is. I was like, she's just, he's like, I knew she was good. And he's like, but I'd never seen her live, and seeing her live is such a different situation. And, he had never seen any of them live, and he was completely impressed. He's like, yeah, thank you for bringing to me my first show. Now I'm going to want to go again and again and again. And I was like, yeah, that's what happens.
Yeah, no, you're good at this, talking about TTB stuff. I appreciate you coming on and sharing all this stuff. I could just listen. I feel like I'm listening to some other TTB podcast or something right now. It's cool for me to just like listen to people's passion for this band. I think thinking of Derek on the stage, he's the band leader, even though Susan's the lead singer and they share lead vocals and everyone gets their shine. But others have kind of made this observation. Sometimes it's hard to tell or hard to know if the drummers are leading Derek or Derek is leading the drummers. I think the drummers are the only people on the stage capable of steering in a way that's like, because I guess they control tempo. So there's that, but also not just tempo. Sometimes the volume, the arc of the crescendos and the hills and valleys and whatever that the band goes on when they take you from, rocking out and whatnot to the pin drop moments throughout a show.
Yeah, and the pin drop moments, the thing about them that I really find interesting, and maybe, it's got to be hard for musicians at times because those are deliberate in what they're doing in the music. But, we as fans, we get excited. We're hooting and hollering, we're yelling and screaming, we're enjoying it. And then, but those are pin drop moments musically that, the musicians are trying to do something with. And it must be hard for them at times because they're really like, in my mind the other night, I said, it's got to be hard when they're trying to do something specific with the music. And then somebody's like yahooing really loud over that pin drop moment. And then that musical part gets lost. And I just wonder about that, like how hard that is for them at times. Or are they just appreciative of the fact that the fans are just so enthusiastic about what they're doing that they're okay with it? I don't play. I don't have that skill set. I have no idea what it feels like when they're doing that.
Yeah, there's been a couple, I forget what show was, someone was describing like it was extra, like the crowd was like extra like disciplined. I forget what show it was, but I think it was like Midnight in Harlem or some song like that. And the crowd was just like exceptionally like quiet. And I think I thought of it now, but I probably made the same reference to like, Peyton Manning quarterbacking the Colts and the crowd like being quiet. It's like you almost have to like, there's a sort of discipline that's required amongst the crowd too. And some people are obnoxious, but it doesn't take we're all excited. We have a couple of drinks in us. We want to yell, whatever, even if we're not doing it repeatedly or obnoxious. Yeah. I'm on some YouTube videos.
Yeah, I am sure,
you can hear my voice.
Sure I am as well, and I have a voice that projects. So, like for Friday night in Raleigh, they could hear me. I was in the third row, but my voice also projects very loud. And even at my work when I'm on Teams calls and stuff for work, people are like, "Could you make sure that your door is shut?" And could you try to tone it down? I'm like, I'm just talking normally, so I know I could be loud around other people that are watching the band as well. Like one time we were at Wilmington last year and I had a few beers that night, and I just remember my buddy Alex turning to me and goes, "Hey, you're one of the talkers we complain about." And I just
Oh man. Oh man,
right.
you got checked. I've been checked. We've all been checked at some point
Yeah.
for something that, my poor ego, our poor egos.
And I'm one of the ones that complains about them. So when I got checked, it was, especially humbling. It was like, all right, you got me. But,
Yeah.
It happens.
I was gonna say you're a loud New Yorker, but you're upstate New York. But I guess close enough. We're all loud.
I'm just loud.
Yeah, it could be from that.
There's nothing I can do about it now. I'm too old to change, right?
Well, anything else, I guess, about night one we could talk about, and then we guess we can get into the next night. This is just so stellar. I mean, we don't have to go through every song. I mean, I feel like we could, but I don't want to. We don't necessarily need to do that. Just such a great show, and I love to see the stuff that we don't get too often. The come see about me's and the hold that lines. I mean, that's kind of what this night was. I mean, a lot of these songs were kind of like ones you don't get every other night. You're not getting "Take Me As I Am" every other night. That's like a once a week song on this tour, something like that.
Right.
I don't have the stats in front of me, and it doesn't matter anyway. But yeah, this is great. The Tangled Up in Blue.
It's funny that you say that, because I was never a one that, like, even when I followed the Dead, I would go for like 2 weeks at a time, and I would see as many shows as I could in those 2 week time periods, and then I'd have to go back to work. And growing up in the Northeast in the late '80s and early '90s, it was easy to see the Dead all over the place in that part of New York and Massachusetts and other parts of the Northeast. And I noticed that the Dead had such a big canon. Their set lists were a little bit more organic, and yet you wouldn't get the repeats. And then I went to 4 shows over 7 days for Tedeschi Trucks, and I got some repeats, but they didn't feel like repeats. They felt like the way they were placed in the set was deliberate, and it was played a little differently. And that's an interesting thing to me, because at first you would say, oh, well, you just saw Pasaquan, you just saw, Just Ain't Fair. Well, yeah, I did, but these were done differently 2 nights later or 4 nights later. And that I think is something about live music that people who are on the fence about it or don't understand why somebody gets so passionate about all these shows banned so frequently doesn't necessarily understanding of it, or maybe they do and they just don't look at it the same way we do. I don't know, but
no, it's this band. This band is uniquely special, uniquely amazing, uniquely talented. It's this band specifically that people don't understand, because they're thinking of their dumb favorite band that's not as good as this band. So that's what they're considering. Why would I want to see?
I listen to so much different music. I kind of
I know
what you're saying, but at the same time, I'm also like, there's a lot of different music out there that they do some of the same things. I mean, I've seen bands play multiple nights and the same set list each night, and the exact same banter in between songs and everything else. And that's fine if that's what you're expecting to see.
But we're not going to go to that every night. We're not going to have the passion for that.
Yeah. But when you have an improvising band like TTB, who has a set list but is going to kind of meander in what they're doing and have some play in the music and kind of draw things out in certain ways, it's so different. And I think that kind of resonates with the overall feeling of how the music sits with you. Like, that emotional feeling you get from the music is so much different.
That was it. You're going.
I was going to say that it's so much different in that sense, because you're kind of riding with them. You're taking that ride with them, and they're not just performing to you. They're kind of feeling the room and feeling the emotions in the room and kind of going with the music that way. And I like that.
Yeah, totally. And that's an interesting point you made before, talking about like the repeat songs, like getting 2-3 repeats and a 4-night run or something like that. But it's not just that the songs are played differently or slightly different version. Maybe someone gets a different solo, maybe something goes on longer. It's also the context within the show that you were referring to, like where it comes in the set, what songs come before it. And it's not even just that, it's just that you're getting a totally different experience because you're a different person. What happened in our lives in the last 2 days in the shows? We've all have dramas and issues and things that we love and hate and celebrate and deal with, like in our lives, and we're bringing all of that to the shows with us as well. So you're a different person hearing that repeated song too.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and when I think about the emotion that the band must be going through when they're going through their days and trying to come up with certain songs as well to be able to play those songs. I mean, the Thursday night in Raleigh, they played, when they did It's So Heavy, Susan got really emotional during the first couple of sets of lyrics, when she started doing some of that. And the timing was a little off because of that. And it was not really noticeable, but I got really lucky in that I was third row for both nights in Raleigh. So I was able to see it. And, I could tell that she kind of was like, had that weight on her in the way she was singing the song. And then like later on, when Alicia did Just Ain't Fair, that as well was just so emotional. And you can imagine like what they're going through before they have to go up and perform that stuff. We receive it one way, they're delivering it another way completely.
Not all artists are this way, but I think this band and Susan and Alicia specifically, as you're describing, are very like emotionally, the band and them too are like very emotionally connected to the songs. Like whereas you're saying some artists and bands will come out and do the same set list every night, same thing in between the songs, same speeches and things they say to the audience. So it makes me almost question a little bit how emotionally are you engaged with your own music? And I'm sure they are to some degree. Bands wrote these great songs. They love their songs. But I think there's levels to it. There's degrees to it. There's no limit on what amount one could be emotionally connected to their songs, as you're seeing, like, through the way Susan and Alicia, express themselves on stage.
But I think what happens is when they are that connected, it emotes into the crowd and you get that same emotion back. Like you feel that from them. I mean, I don't know how many times now in seeing them play, I have looked down at my arm after something, a note, something Susan did, something Alicia did, something Derek did, Gabe, any one of them. And I'll look down and I'll just see the hairs, standing on end, and I had goosebumps because of that emotion that they put out there.
Same for me. And it's like when I'm just like listening to the band very casually, sometimes when I'm multitasking, I'll be doing something and then it's the moment, I guess, when you look at your radio, look at your speaker and you're like, excuse me? And what's just looking at what did that guy just do? And then you're really, I don't know, it's like you get this like this goosebumps feeling or whatever, basically.
Yeah, and I don't have that with a lot of other music that I see, but like this band definitely brings that out. And
more consistently, I feel like, than any other act, I guess, for me right now. I mean,
yep, I would say so. And I think the other part about it is that I don't think they really disappoint because of how connected they are with what they're doing. Like every one of those shows felt like the best show I've ever seen.
Yeah, I was doubting when you were saying it sounds the best. I'm like, yeah, sure, this is the latest one. Like everyone said, this is the best sounding.
It feels that way with every show because of the way they are.
Yeah, and they get better. They practice. Derek makes them rehearse, and they're a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, and it shows. So, I don't know if you want to go through Wednesday nights.
Yeah, I got it right here. Yeah, Here My Dear Fallen, Stand Back, 700 Houses making an appearance. Yes, We Will, Part of Me, DMSR, Ain't That Something I Want More, Soul Sacrifice to close out set one. Then In Every Heart, wow, to get that is quite something. Chevrolet, Playing With My Emotions, It Ain't Fair, Idle Wind, Maki Mani drums, and then finishing up Idle Wind. That did it. And to Isaac, Heavy Jam, Caravan, Swamp Raga, Into Midnight in Harlem, Bound for Glory to close it out. And then encore, I Can't Make You Love Me and Show Me. Like, these are such different shows. There's no repeats. There's no repeats night 1 and night 2 of these two shows.
No, not night 1 and night 2. I'm just saying, like, I had, because I saw 4. I got a couple.
Yeah. I follow. But yeah, just.
No, I will tell you one thing though. The Ain't That Something? I Want More, Soul Sacrifice to end that first set was amazing. It to me sounded really good. Like, just everything about it was fantastic. And the I Want More going into Soul Sacrifice, it was like it switched on a dime to go into that. And you could see that Derek was kind of maestroing to get everybody to have that timing to switch perfectly. But it was really, I was really impressed with the way they ended that set. It was good.
Yeah, I love the soul sacrifice following the armor and the Bex Bolero too. Sometimes I just like associate certain words or feelings with songs. Like, even when like the soul sacrifice, it's like very tribal. It's like it's I don't know how, like this. It's like this beat, it's like this chant. It's got its own like vibe to it. Whereas Bex Bolero,
Woodstock kind of made it that way,
Right. And Bex Bolero has this like triumphant feel, which is an amazing feeling too. It feels like a victory.
Yeah.
Bex Bolero feels like this triumphant victory, and Soul Sacrifice feels like this tribal connection to music and others. It's like this whole everything they do like evokes this own unique atmosphere. Every song is its own living, breathing creature in a way, if that makes any sense.
Right. Now, the 700 Houses, I hadn't heard that before. I guess was that a Susan
song? Tom in the chat, have not seen 700 Houses since 2009 at the Wani Festival with Susan's solo band. That's pre-TTB. Mm-hmm.
Yep. So, I mean, she had mentioned that she wrote it a while ago. So,
yeah, I'm not sure if TTB has ever played that. I don't. If they did, it was probably very early.
Yeah.
In their existence, but this is just pretty damn awesome set list. Hear My Dear Fall and then Stand Back. Like,
Yep.
That's cool to get that early in the set list. They keep rearranging stuff around, and it keeps you on edge. Like, really anything could be anywhere in a set list.
Yeah.
And it works.
Yeah.
Or at least there's a reason why they do it.
Yeah.
I feel like I follow. I was gonna say I feel like I follow. Some fans have this with other bands, and maybe you've felt this way with the Dead and other bands. It's just like you feel like you kind of, even if you don't, I do love everything they do, but even if like other fans like or critics or something like don't love the band or something they did as much as you do, you always feel like you understand why they made certain choices, like why you kind of could see the method to the madness, the set list, the peaks and valleys, covering their bases, making sure everyone gets their shine, getting your Allman Brothers covers in, getting your I'm the Moon stuff. We all kind of could see the method to the madness to some degree.
Kinda. I mean, I always wonder about how they come up with set choices like that. I mean, I'm sure there is some like how much effort or how much it takes to play a particular song for a particular band member, and then having to switch it up so that, because you can see when the horn section's going off, and when Alicia and Mark and Mike are going off, and different things with it, the way they break up the songs. I always wonder about that, but this is one of the ways where I just sit back and say, you know what, whatever they want to do, I'm okay with it. I'm happy I'm here. I'm happy I'm seeing live music. I'm happy I'm seeing the best touring band that's going on right now. I'm okay. That's their approach, I take.
I wonder, I mean, I know they use like an app to like communicate and do the set list and do a lot of, that stuff. I wonder how much AI could even be a helpful tool to the band. Like, I mean, obviously computers and records and all that. So it could be helpful. Like, make sure we have I want this song to be in it, but don't make it too much upbeat. Make sure Alicia gets her thing. I don't know. It could be, I don't know if the technology is even there or would know TTB
You have to train.
intimately enough?
So I work in IT. So part of the models that would do that, you'd have to train a lot of that first.
Right.
So it could be done. I wouldn't say that it can't be done because I'm not that smart. But it could be done possibly with certain training models of what they do. But I don't know though. Would an artist want to do that though?
Probably not. I feel like coming up with the set list is probably one of the more fun parts of being in a band besides playing the music and, having fun or whatever. I know BB King said they get paid for the travel, and there's certain things that are a pain in the ass being a public figure that you have to deal with, and whatnot. But I think I would guess creating the set list is probably a fun thing to do. And then as you're creating it, imagining, sort of fantasizing, visualizing what it looks like on stage and sounds like. I imagine that's a fun aspect of it compared to other aspects of being in a touring band.
I wonder though how it is for I've heard interviews with other jam bands like Fish. Trey has an interview on XM about talking about like how he picks the set list and how they figure that out. And he said it's really stressful and that, they sometimes have way too many songs and then they come back and cut stuff down again. Imagine with a canon as large as TTBs can be, it's got to be stressful to try to figure that out because certain covers are going to be in circulation that they're playing more just because of the way they're trying to highlight things. What they want to cover out of their songs might be different depending on where they are and what they're trying to do. I don't know how you come up with that stuff. I have trouble enough sometimes figuring out what I'm going to eat, nonetheless, put out a set list. So I don't get it.
Right, and that's obviously that's a huge reason probably why some of these artists do the same set lists and do the same. Every song is probably roughly the same, almost exactly the same length every night. So not only TTB have so many different songs to play and so many mouths to feed in terms of getting them attention on stage. It's like these songs can be different lengths and they're played at different tempos. Especially if you listen to things evolve over the years, usually. Songs tend to become more upbeat, I guess, once they get on the road. It's just natural that they become more up-tempo, rather. Especially something like, I think Made Up Mind is more, and Playing With My Emotions. Listen to Playing With My Emotions on the I Am the Moon album versus live. It's definitely faster, more up-tempo,
and actually,
live.
I really enjoy the live version of it. I really feel like it kind of, the beat, the way Susan, goes through the song, it kind of, again, I feel it in here when she's doing those lyrics, and everybody who goes through struggles in a relationship can understand the lyrics behind that song and that, and how it makes you feel. So I think it helps when they're doing that live and they get that tempo going. I think it's really neat the way that goes through because it translates well. I mean, you listen to the album, you listen to it live. Yeah, that's faster, but in that moment, it always feels right.
Oh, of course. That's what I think. The latest version is often the like not correct version. I'm just I don't really like correct in quotes or whatever. It's like there's so many different versions of Let Me Get By. Oh, this Derek solo is my favorite one. Oh, this is the best Derek solo on Midnight in Harlem ever. It's like whatever the latest one is, whatever one you're listening to on repeat that week on archive is the quintessential version. This is I think the guest Rich Bernard talks about, he's like the idle wind expert. We got an idle wind expert in the fan groups who's like, who knows all the different ones, which is the best, And then you got me. I like to analyze the Passaquans and whatnot, or think about which ones might be the quintessential versions of Passaquans.
I just look at it that I'm happy to hear whatever they're playing, and I don't kind of do that. But what I do, what I do end up doing at shows every once in a while is the whole Deadhead thing of when you can name a tune after like one or two notes.
Of course.
And I do that with them. And more often than not, I'm right after like the first note. And I don't know how I do that because half the time I can't remember the full song and the name of the song.
You feel it, you know what's coming next.
And I'll be like, oh wait, I know that, I can't remember it. So I'm
yeah,
like, I'll freeze.
You recognize it. You recognize, but you don't have the words to say what it is. I think because so many fans are getting good at that and the catalog is getting so big, Derek is doing some misdirections with the fans now, where you're thinking you're going one way and he's going the other way. So I think that's all part of the fun, of course, and I think we're getting a little bit more of that, like the teases and the medleys and the mountain jams. Like they have so much great stuff to cover that it must be almost like overwhelming deciding what to play. And then you got yo-yos like me on social media and whatnot, play this, play that, and others like that's the most common thing is people making suggestions. They could play anything, they can make anything awesome. So like there's no song that they can't make their own and probably make better than the original.
Well, it's funny because when you think about the set list and how they try to come up with it, like I remember when I first started seeing them, I heard on, I can't remember where it was. I think it was one of the earlier albums. I heard Whiskey Legs. And I always loved that song. And I was like, it's not in the rotation. They never play it. And then when they were doing the pandemic jams, they brought it out.
Right.
And I was like, wow. And then what ended up happening is as things started opening up after the pandemic and they started playing, I happened to be in New York and they were playing in Vermont and it was a couple hours away, but I had the opportunity and I was like, you know what? And I bolted up to Vermont and I went and saw them play in Burlington. And that night they played Whiskey Legs. And I was like, I've been waiting. I was always like, I want to hear this song. It's just one song I really would like to hear live.
You're a song chaser.
And it's not something I normally do. And I was just so excited about it afterwards. I was like, all right, I got Whiskey Legs. I'm good. And then they had it in the rotation for a little while longer after that. Now it's back out again because with I Am the Moon, they're playing a lot more of those songs. But with a canon so large, how you come up with a set list under certain time constraints, because all these communities have these, time limits on how long the band can play and everything else. How you figure out all that timing, I don't know how they do it.
Well, that's why some of these set lists have X's and marks and changes and things like that to make it work, I guess.
Yeah. Yep. I will say one thing about the way they did like the Caravan and the Swamp Raga, like that in that second set, that Caravan was it was so upbeat in the way they were doing it, and it was like they had everybody really moving with that song, and that was really nice. When they came out for the encore, I Can't Make You Love Me was a song that the first time I saw them play it, that was one of those I got chills moments. Actually got a little teary too the first time I saw them play it. And then now I've seen it a few times and I'm just like, it still hits me with that same emotion, but it's just not as intense as that first time. And I feel that a little bit. Every time I hear it now.
Yeah, no, I have a lot of personal associations and feelings from my life that I associate with when I hear these different TTB songs. And one of the cool things is those things evolve and take on new meanings. And like, as we listen to these songs and see these new live shows, we create these new memories and like layers and layers of context that add meaning to and connection to these songs. Passaquan is Mountain Jam 2.0, so playing a good part of Mountain Jam is good to me, says Tom. Yeah. I hope that on this new album that I assume that they're working on this fall, winter, and into next year, I hope it has something like Passaquan on it, like that they continue to.
How many times? I mean, I guess they could,
The album after this one, the next one?
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, what kind of like how many songs can they write in that genre, like in that flavor? Like how many? I mean, I'm sure they're got to be a little bit different for each to grow with what they're doing.
You're talking about instrumental compositions like Passaquan and Mountain Jam?
Yeah.
How many does Derek have in him? Is what your question is?
I'm just kind of wondering, like, how
often could he pump it out?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, they're professionals, but at the same time, you want it to come organic. So, I mean, I don't think anything is going to come forced. Everything seems to come pretty natural to this band. They dedicate the time and put in the effort to make things happen. But we'll see. I mean, they've always had on their albums, or at least on a handful, and they've had a couple of like instrumental shrimps and grits and a couple of other little things here and there of instrumental parts. So, I mean, in some ways, Pasquan is just an expansion of that. And so,
I guess just because it gets lumped in kind of with some of the, like Mountain Jam and that kind of end of what they're doing, it just seems a little different. But I love hearing it. And it's a song that just, to me, from the instrumental side, just reminds me of, again, the roots, where they're coming from, how some of this stuff is, coming out. I wasn't questioning whether or not he had anything left in the tank. I'm just saying, how often do you write those kind of instrumental songs for what you're trying to do and what you're putting out? I mean, sometimes it may seem like that it's overkill or maybe not. I don't know, man.
Well, I forget. I think I've heard him tell sort of the broad story of how he started. I don't think it started out like, I'm going to set out to write an instrumental composition song like Mountain Jam. I think he was just coming up with some ideas, and it just became this thing. And I think initially some of the band members were even more enthusiastic about it than Derek was originally, but I think that's kind of the story, if I have it correct.
Right.
A little bit.
Yeah, it's just amazing to me that the range of musicians that are there. I wonder what it's like being in the creative room when you have some of this stuff going on, and they're collaborating on trying to come up with these things, like getting it from that initial thought in somebody's head to an album, to practicing it for live shows and doing all that kind of watching that grow and creative process must be amazing, to like an amazing feeling at the end. I mean, I think I do some creative things in what I do for work, but nobody's going to remember it in 5 years. What they're doing, people will remember for a long time because it touches them in such a different way, and that's amazing to me.
They fully embrace their musical journeys and the process and the craft, and I think that, obviously that's what just makes the products just so amazing, is that they put in the time and the effort, the dedication, they have the passion for it, they take it seriously, but they're professionals, but they're great professionals, and just in terms of like doing all the little things and giving all the most important things attention in their professional and personal lives. Just the fact that, like, I'm sure there's unique challenges being a husband and wife duo on tour and being in a band for 14 years now. Right. So I think that definitely presents unique challenges. So the fact that they've been able to do that and keep the personal side and, on the up and up, as far as we all know, and the professional side, like speaking to them as people. And Derek's talked about that too, and Susan, I think, as well, how, some of those, the artists and the Allman Brothers members who've come before them, struggled with, staying, clean and being, family men, the best of their abilities and things like that. So I think there's some cautionary tales that Derek and the band and Susan probably have learned from, and probably got a lot of that knowledge from a lot of the artists and mentors that they've looked up to over the years. We were speaking about all the their influences and the education that they give us, but I think they're also passing that down to a lot of the artists and the younger artists that open up for them, tour with them, that they promote. Like, they've opened up me to newer artists. Like, I think maybe this thought has kind of passed, but like, people say, oh, music stinks today, there's no good music, I can't listen, the radio set. Yeah, obviously, like, the radio and top 40 is not going to be probably what me and you are going to listen to, but if you have the internet and you have the passion and the interest, you could find new bands. If you go to shows, if you make the effort online and offline, you can find good music.
what I like during like the Wheels of Soul tour and some of the other things that they're doing, where they're bringing out different styles of music in what they're doing with that too. I think that really is good to, you know, I saw Wheels of Soul a few different times throughout those iterations, and you know, seeing Marcus King play with them, seeing Shovels and Rope, seeing, you know, the Wood Brothers, some of these other bands play with them. I think what's cool about it is that if they could get some of these newer, younger kids that are coming up in that music on there too, because I think the comment earlier that I made about the show seeming to, you know, age a little bit older here in Charlotte, you know, in Raleigh there was a good mix. There were some younger kids there. For this music to grow and be around, you know, we hope that some younger folks would get that education as well to the music. And, you know, I think it's good when they bring in some of these other artists, you know, whether they're bringing in, you know, Samantha Fish or Margot Price or, you know, whoever else that they're bringing in, it's great. Because
there's a happy medium, I think, between like having a audience full of, you know, 65 plus people sitting and having a group of 20-year-old ravers. You know, I think there's probably a happy medium in there. And I guess this music, there's so much competition for the entertainment dollar and our attention for entertainment or whatever. But it's probably, TTB is definitely too much of a niche interest. They like, they're too talented to be this niche. It still surprises me that like people don't objectively realize that this is the best, most talented touring band. And Derek is the best guitar player, slide guitar player in the world, and Susan's vocals are as legendary as Janis Joplin and all of them, you know, all of that.
I've tried to, like, even my older siblings who turned me on to a lot of different music when I was younger. I've tried to get them back into TTB as like here, check out this band, and you know, when I have, you know, do an Allman Brothers cover and I give them that, or I give them a Derek and Domino's cover or something else, they're like, oh yeah, that's really neat. But when I give them an original song, sometimes it's a little slower. And I do have an older sister who loves Susan Tedeschi, and she lived in Connecticut. So she used to see Susan when she was really young and touring and a lot. And she's just like, that is one that I, you know, definitely could be, you know, she's like, okay, I see why you love this band because I love Susan and everything else. But it's just it's great when you see these other artists get together and do these different things. Like, I think that the age of the fan can sometimes dictate how some of the shows go, obviously. But when you get the younger folks that are into it, maybe from their parents, or I don't have any kids, but I try to get my nieces and nephews to listen to a lot of different music when I'm around them, because I like it. And, you know, that's what all my siblings did for me. But I think that helps grow it and sustain it, so that we have these things that we do, like Derek making, you know, bringing his Allman Brothers influence from his family and everything that he grew up with that. And then going back and looking at some of these other blues people that he, you know, grew up with as well. And that he, you know, framed some of his guitar style against. And then when people start researching that, then they say, oh, wow, I really like this Derek Truck guy. I'm going to take a look at what he liked. And then they start going back, and then they start to learn that other history. You know, when you look at rock and roll, you know, most rock and roll, at least from the UK, was just blues music reconstituted in the UK in some way, shape, or form. But I think what happens in this music that's a little bit more original is that it plays off that in a different way, and it brings in people differently, because it's not just, you know, a rehash of something else. It has a little bit more originality to it. I mean, how much is original these days, just based on how many years of music have been out there? You hear it all the time, so maybe not everything's original. But I mean, still, these guys do incredible work. I couldn't write any of this stuff. I just, you know, never put it in the time or effort.
They expose us to new music. They expose us to old music. They educate us. But I think what listening to this band and being a fan of this band also does, it encourages us to go on sort of a journey of self-discovery in terms of finding out what the hell music am I interested in next. Like I've dove deeper into some more jazz stuff, and obviously some of the things that just directly covers that TTB has done in their shows of different kinds of music. But I'm learning more about myself and even just what my personal tastes are. I don't have to love every single thing, every song of every artist that TTB loves, but there's certain things I might gravitate to more than others, and that's sort of a fun journey of self-discovery in itself, and it encourages that. I don't know if other bands' music encourage to have your own journey of self-discovery in the same way, like you're inferring this band pushes you in a different way as a fan of music that other bands don't do, because there's just so much diversity of their catalog and the covers and all this. And I talked about this a million times, and I can't help but thinking of what was that guest Ulf from Australia, who never seen TTB, never heard of them, and then caught them at a blues festival, and he became like us instantly, and basically said that they were the culmination of all the music he's loved in his entire life. And somehow, he didn't stumble upon Derek or Susan or whatever until when you know.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting thing too, because out of the people I've tried to have, take a chance and okay, listen to this music that I really enjoy, check it out. Most of them, don't instantly get that hit of like, yeah, I really like this. For me, I did because I knew Derek's history. I was a huge Allman Brothers fan, and I saw him play enough that I understood like who he was as a musician, then to understand more about Susan and the rest of the band. I think the passion for some people, especially if they like live music, is if they don't know what to expect and they see these guys live, and all of a sudden it opens their eyes like, wow, what is this band? I need to know more about them. And then that changes everything, because then all of a sudden you're like, okay, now I get why you really love this band.
I think when I first discovered the band and first saw them live and started to dive on YouTube and go to like a couple of shows in those early years, it did hit me right away. I did sense that this was something different and something special, and it took me to a different emotional place. But I almost didn't believe it. I feel like I was like questioning myself, because I didn't try to get to every show. I was engaged, but I definitely wasn't as engaged in 2011 as I am now, and in the years after that. But I almost didn't believe it. It's like, why do I want to go to more than two shows in Vegas? Why should I go to all three shows in Vegas? That's crazy. It's crazy to like a band so much to want to see them. I never really felt that way or had that maybe opportunity. So maybe I did pass up some potential shows that I could have gone early in the years, because I didn't I felt like, oh, that's crazy to go to more than one show. But then with each passing year, it became irrational to not go to every show that I could get to.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like I said to you earlier, when we were first setting up for this, when I hear they're going on tour, all financial logic goes out the window to see whether or not I can go to the next Tedeschi Truck show. Because it's like, do I have the money? Do I not have the money? It's like, I'm not worried about that right now. I just want to go see him. And then I worry about it afterwards.
How many? I think that's the question. What we doing the Sophie's Choice of should I fly to this show and get worse seats? Should I wait till they come to California and just focus on that's kind of like
where makes it a little bit more hard to resist, though. I'm going to be honest with you there. I've noticed that part, because even shows that I can't go to, I know I can't go to, and I see that Swamp Family pre-sale code come out, I'm like, maybe I should buy these tickets and then see if I can trade it for another show over here. Somebody else who's just as passionate as I am will want to take these tickets. I remember years ago when I first got into them, I couldn't give away tickets to the Warner Theater. And now it's so hard to get those tickets. And I had one year, I think it was 2016. I was supposed to be up there in DC on business. So I bought tickets, and then my company canceled my trip. And I gave the tickets away over Facebook to people. They ended up paying me for like FedEx because they were still physical tickets. And now, Warner's like one of the hottest tickets you can get when they play there in DC. So it's amazing how that growth happens.
Yep. Good stuff. Anything else we should cover or talk about or mention? I don't know if there's anything else you want to mention about the shows. Good conversation all around.
No,
I know you're on East Coast time. It's getting late.
You invite me on. This has been fun. I mean, I could talk about these guys all day.
I can tell, and I hope you get to. Well, we're gonna have a long break coming up, but definitely come on again and recap shows. I mean, we're gonna have some time off, so if you hit me up, we could cook something up. If there's anything else about the band, there's always gonna be something to talk about with this band. There's gonna be some kind of news, some kind of thing going on. I'll eventually get some ass pocket whiskey up in here. Maybe I'll do a taste test. Maybe more than a taste test. Maybe more than a test.
Well, it sold out so fast the first time around. Gotta see what happens next time around.
Yep. Yeah, I'll get that. Good stuff all around. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Adam.
Oh, you got it. Talk soon. Peace.
So
there you go. Episode 180. Recapping the band in Charlotte at the Ovens Auditorium, not the Owens Auditorium. Hope everyone's doing okay out there. Please subscribe on YouTube, on all the audio listening platforms, at Tedeschi Trucks Podcast, Instagram, patreon.com/TTB Podcast to support, patreon.com/TTB Podcast. TedeschiTrucksPodcast.com will send you to a link tree for everything related to the show. AdamChoit.com for everything else that I'm working on. TedeschiTrucksBand.com is the band's official website. This is the end of the line, the end of the road here. I don't know if Atlanta this weekend is sold out or what, but you can try to grab tickets to that. Definitely buy merch, support the band, download the Swamp Family app. Thank you to the band, fans, crew, podcast supporters, guests. I think that's all I got for today. Appreciate everyone listening. Let's talk soon. Peace.